Hi everyone, welcome to another Player Development Project Q&A. Pleased to be joined as per usual by my colleague, PDP Technical Advisor Dan Wright. Dan, how are you, mate?
Good, thank you. I thought you forgot my name for a second there.
No, you're well by now. We've spent a bit of time together, both online and in real life, which is nice. Dan, good to have you back, and we've got a really interesting question here from Mikael over in Sweden. It's come in via the PDP Innovation Space on the website. Now, Mikael has just started coaching, so he said, what's your advice to a beginner in the field of football coaching? So very broad, but we've all been there, we've all started somewhere. What are your initial ideas around this?
Okay, so if we were having this question face to face, I suppose the first question I would ask is a little bit more detail about the environment and the players in the environment. So we don't know what age, we don't know whether, what's the objective of the football training, although that sounds a bit serious. Is the objective for people to run around and have fun? Is the objective for guys to try and get to another level? Is the objective for them to be elite athletes? I'm starting to use the word elite just to annoy you because I know that you don't like it.
Well, it's controversial at times. It's not that I don't like it, but it's controversial at times. We'll steer clear of that one for now. But I think also what Mikael's got to look at here is like you say. So begin with the end in mind. It's something we've talked about before. Is what are the outcomes? If the players, you'd assume if he's a beginner, he's probably in a fairly grassroots environment where he's working with players who are there for the enjoyment. So first and foremost, I think you've got to create an environment where players are falling in love with the game. They're having a positive sporting experience. They're engaged in social connection with their friends. They're enjoying the challenge of winning and losing and learning about the game and learning the lessons that sport provides. So I think on a very basic level, it's about making sure that those players are enjoying themselves. Then you've got to look at obviously developing your own knowledge, both in terms of learning and teaching, and of course the game itself. Obviously, as a coach in any code, you've got to have that understanding of the game. So I think the big one here for Mikael is to have that natural curiosity, that real desire to learn is essential to developing yourself as a coach, and constantly looking around you for good content. And obviously that's what PDP's been formed for, is to really aggregate a network of top contributors. So obviously recommend that Mikael jumps on the site and has a real dig through some of the blogs and some of the other members' content there. But I think that environment is the key. And I think if he can build a place where players are engaged, they're feeling a bit of connection, they're looking forward to coming to training, that's going to be a really good start.
Yeah, I think one of the things if you were starting from scratch as a coach is about sort of building that rapport with the players, and a really simple way to sort of get your mind in the right place for this is to ask the players or to understand why they started playing the game. So if they're very young players, they'll be able to tell you, but if they're a bit older, they might have to go away and think about it. But a lot of them will give you really simple answers of like, I love being with my mates, I love being outside, I love scoring goals, I love beating people. It might be I love smashing people in tackles. And if we sort of, like you said, build on that, that initial love for the game, I think you're going in the right direction. And then if you put that together with, trying to build some rapport with the players, which we've spoken about and we've written about, understanding them as people as well as footballers. So, what motivates them and why they're there, and perhaps some of the context around the player. And then in terms of practical examples, we've done loads of small Q&As on this, haven't we, about, practical tips and hints about how to make the environment probably more player-centered. So, things like avoiding lines and queues and having, lots of games going on at the same time, lots of chaos, lots of interference, because that's what the players want to do, especially if they're at their age. They want to play, they want to learn, they want to experiment, and they want to go back to, what I said at the beginning about why they love the game. They want to turn up to training, and if they're a goalkeeper, they want to dive around and stop the ball going in the goal. So don't spend hours and hours of passing the ball from cone 1 to cone 2 to cone 3 because the players want to do X, Y, Z. And then I suppose it might be about building those sort of constraint-led games to maybe take the coaching a little bit more seriously and taking it into a direction where you could teach them some of the principles of play and some of the the tactical ideas of the game. Even if they are young players, you could do that in a 3v3 or a 4v4. And again, there's loads of sort of short Q&A videos on that, isn't it, on the website?
Definitely. And I think, at the same time, you're looking to maximize that contact time, aren't you? I mean, if Mikael's only working once or twice or maybe even one session at a game with these players, it's about working out, okay, what do they need this week that's going to make sure they maximize every minute at training, as opposed to focusing on what he needs perhaps as a young coach or a developing coach in terms of how he's learning. So I guess to sort of segue to that as well, it's about doing as much reading and research as you can, but also potentially getting yourself alongside some mentors, or going in and observing coaches who are working in different clubs or at different levels, and really trying to immerse yourself in the world of football, and try and connect with people as well. I think there's a lot to be said for networking, and then going observing coaches, who are working in environments that can show you what a good session might look like in terms of organization. And I think being organized is the first thing as a coach when you're starting out, is going to make your life so much easier. If you're there early, you're organized, the session's laid out, you're going to take the pressure off yourself, and you can just then focus on the players.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this before, but I sort of use the 90-10% rule of, the formal qualifications are important and you do learn a lot, but it's probably only 10%, the informal learning, which is, probably where the PDP came from, is, learning about the areas of the game, or the areas of learning, or the psychology, or the motivation, or how do I film my sessions and all that sort of stuff, which probably isn't taught on a course. The informal learning is probably super important, and then alongside that, the informal learning of the game. So you can learn some X's and O's through your UA for B and UA for A, but you can also learn going to a live game and sitting in the stand and just watching a number 7 for 45 minutes, or watching two teams playing opposing shapes. And whilst that might not be super relevant to under 8s, you are taking them on that journey. So some of the principles of what you're doing at a young age will be exactly the same as what Arsenal are trying to do, or Everton are trying to do. They just might do it in a more advanced way. So you've got the skill of, okay, how do I break down this to make it relevant for 8, 9, 10-year-olds? Some of the Q&A content that I think would be worth checking out would probably be the video on how can I affect every player at training. I think that's quite a good one for all coaches, but especially if you're a beginner. And then how can I engage players quickly? So we've talked about players turn up and they want to do the things we've already talked about. They want to play, they want to smash people, they want to score goals, they want to run around, and we've got a few sort of hints and tips on how you can do that. Any other sort of research or any articles you'd recommend on the website?
Yeah, definitely. There's a great research review by our resident professor, Bill Harper, over there in the States, and that's on successful talent development in soccer, which is just sort of about creating that environment to develop young players. Also recommend any of the blogs by guys like Mark Upton. He's also got a great magazine article called The Perfect Storm in issue 5 of the magazine. Our own Jimmy Vaughan, his work around in the environment and training design, as well as his colleague over there at AIK, Mark O'Sullivan, who's written some great content for the magazine and the blog. So look, plenty on there for Mikael to check out. Dan, any final thoughts on this topic of starting out as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, you did mention it, but you sort of dropped it in quite subtly. But I suppose stay curious is really important. So stay curious to learn about your players, to learn about the game, to learn about how they learn, to network with other people, and to be quite busy, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, through, even through text messages, to get out to see those guys, to observe good coaches, to study. All of those things are, for me, staying curious. And I suppose it's also being quite patient with how you're going to get this information. It's not going to be one book. It's not going to be one webinar. It's not going to be one article. And so I always use the logic that when I do watch a webinar or go and watch somebody coach or listen to somebody speak, if I learn one thing, then it was worth doing. And I think those sort of golden nuggets of learning one thing every time you go, if you learn one new thing every single day, then, in a few years, you're going to be winning, aren't you?
Absolutely. That message of constant desire to learn is something we'll continue to push. Dan, thanks again for your time today on another PDP Q&A. We'll look forward to another discussion very soon.